Microsoft wanted to open their subsidiary in West Africa. And I was asked to go and be like a deputy CEO, where we're going to place our subsidiary in Ivory Coast. I had a boyfriend I was living with at the time, and he said, if you go, I don't think our relationship will survive. I loved him very much. I did. And so after much conversations, I did not take the job. I didn't. Short story was I married the man, right?
I think it's very important for you to warm up this conversation by telling us about you. That way we all blend in and get our antennas up, ready to go with the questions.
I'm a mother of 3 kings, as I call them. I'm a wife. I've had a long career in the corporate world, which started with Microsoft in 1990. It's a very long story. And it's a story that I tell because it has so many lessons in how we ourselves as people, when we build our personal brands, you shouldn't have any fear. If you have confidence in yourself, you just have to walk through any door that opens and present yourself and say, this is who I am. Yeah. So how I got into Microsoft was I graduated with a master's degree in economics, in developing economics. And as a student, you graduate, you're broke. I was then in England as a scholarship student from Cameroon. But by the time I got to my 3rd year, the scholarship had dried up. So we were basically kind of ambling onto the ends of our degrees, owing fees, trying to subsist in whatever way we can. And so I graduated and I was broke and I was working in an agency that would send you today to go and maybe pack vegetables in a factory, or tomorrow go and be receptionist in an office, and the next week you're cleaning toilets in an office, that kind of agency, right? So haven't packed meat, packed vegetables. I worked in a warehouse for a paper printing company as a sort of just accounts reconciliation person. My next placement was in Microsoft. And how did I get into Microsoft? Somebody in the HR office was ill for that week. She was pregnant and she wasn't feeling particularly well. So they needed someone to sit in her desk and just receive papers, basically. Any inquiry, just receive it, file it, and whenever she comes back, she'll deal with it. So I'm in that seat. The operations manager comes in and says, here's a requisition, please can we get someone in for the warehouse, because we need someone to just do a bit of analytical work, because there's a high level of back orders for customers who are not getting their fulfillment, and there's also a high level of inventory, right, in the warehouse, meaning there isn't an alignment in what is being ordered versus what is being produced by the factory. So we need someone to come in for like 3 months to kind of reconcile, do the analysis, and see what's fast moving, what's not moving, so that the factory can be advised accordingly. And I looked at it and I thought, I could do this job. I could do this job. Please, I could do this job. So I told him, I said, I can do this job. So rather than file it as I would, which was my job at the time, to just receive it, file it, so she can deal with it when she comes back, the person whose job that I was sitting in for. I looked at this man and I said, I can do this job. Now you have to remember, this is 1990s. I'm a black woman. Yeah. I'm an African black woman. I'm sitting in a seat as we'd call them in those days, temp. So he says to me immediately, without even asking me a question, he says, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, I can't. I really want to do this job. I can do it. And he said, no. He said, no. He said, no. So I took it and I left it. And I then went and asked somebody where the operations department was. And I went to see this man. And I said, I really think I can do this job for you. Bear in mind, I have a master's degree in development economics, so I know a little bit about maths. I can add 1 + 1. He's still saying no to me. At this point, I haven't told him what I am. Nothing. He just knows I'm an African woman, I'm a black woman. In those days, The most, if I was walking on the street, the most they could take me for was maybe I was a nurse or... So he didn't believe that I could do this job. And I said, I can. Anyway, short story was he said, okay, come and see me on Monday. This is towards the end of my placement in Microsoft. Come and see me on Monday with your CV. Now, I hadn't done a CV. I didn't know, by that, I just graduated, I don't have a CV. So I went back home and I thought the best I can do is just say I have a degree. I have worked in these last few months in this place, that place, that place. I don't have that kind of experience. But I said, so I came back on Monday, I presented myself as a degree holder, and he immediately said to me, oh, you're overqualified for what we're looking for, right? So you're a degree holder, we're just looking for someone who has basic analytical skills to just like add 1 + 1 = 2. The back orders are this many, these are the products that are obsolete or near obsolete. These are the customer orders that are needed to be fulfilled. Go to the factory and tell them to produce more of this and less of this. It's basic. I said, please, I need this job, I need it. Anyway, short story, he offered it to me, right? So that's my first success of, if you really want something, just like, speak up. The most anyone can say to you is no, and no doesn't cut you, blood doesn't come out, you go away and you go to the next one. So I got the job, and the next thing you do when you get a job, which I think is probably what you and many of you have done in this room, which is to make yourself so relevant that you're almost indispensable. Nobody is indispensable, but you become really, really useful that they must want you to stay. So in my case, I found this job. It was pretty easy to do, to be perfectly honest, because like I said, it's too many of these, too little of these. Put the two together, do a little forecast of what's coming, because you've seen the run rate, and advise the factory accordingly. So I did that. But what I started doing, because this is Microsoft, in the days where we had, and I think most of you are quite young actually, but I'll say it, in the days where products came in boxes. And if you buy Word, Microsoft Word, it came in a big box with a lot of disks. You took the box. You're saying yes, you're too young. You don't remember. You took the box out, you took the manuals out, you took the disks, you put one in, you went and made a cup of tea, came back, maybe the first disc has downloaded, and that sort of thing. So boxes came in products. Products were expensive to make. So when they were near obsolescence, that was a huge cost for the business. So I thought I should start giving each product manager a view of their business, of their product line, in terms of what is really at risk of obsolescence and how well they're doing in terms of selling. Now, again, this is before technology was the way it is now. We didn't have just in time, we didn't have press a button and it can show you a full view of your business. So I did what we call a top 10 report. So top 10 obsoletes at risk, top 10 the fastest selling products, top 10, whatever. I just did a top 10, which each product manager will get each week, and they will see a view of their business from their own perspective. But as a CEO, you were able to see a complete picture of what was highest selling, and also maybe at that time get a little forecast of your revenue position at the end of the month, right? The CEO loved this report. He absolutely loved it, because as I said, it was the days before. So each product manager was now held accountable for what might become obsolete. Because if you think about it, each product manager wants as many of their products in the warehouse as possible, because they don't want their products to ever run out. Yeah. You want the business to think you are doing well, and so you order. So they became more aware and accountable and about efficiencies, about ordering just what you need, about how well their products were doing, and how well they might do at the end of the month before the end of the month came. So a revenue position was almost known before the month end came. And I'm talking to people now who know those things now at the press of a button, but we were working with our little spreadsheets, and that was it. So it became I actually got an award for this. I'm telling the short version of this story, sorry, because we haven't got time. But they gave me an award for this simple thing that I did. It was really simple, to be perfect. It's really easy. But it was so valuable for the company that after my 3 months, they said, can you stay for another 6 months? And after the 6 months, please can we employ you as a Microsoft employee? That was when I held my hand up and said, actually, I'm an African. I don't have permit to work in this place. I haven't got permit to work in this country. So you remember what I said before about relevance? Yes. Microsoft actually took it upon themselves to try and get me a work permit in in England, and that's how my career truly started in Microsoft. They moved me to marketing. I was in operations, so I got promoted to marketing. So I was sitting as sort of aside to all the product managers and all the glamorous people who did the marketing and blah, blah, blah. I was doing the sort of dirty end of marketing, which is analysis, research, and all of that. So yeah, my career took off because I spoke up to somebody who I could have just filed that little paper and waited for someone else to do it. It was an opportunity which I thought I could do, and I did it. So I worked for Microsoft for 8 years. I did various jobs in Microsoft. I did internal comms. I did, what else did I do? Strategic planning, strategic analysis, all of that. So it just kind of grew. And my last job for Microsoft was in the regional division of which was Africa and Middle East. And I had 15 countries on my beat in Africa. So I was the regional product manager for one of the product divisions. And we had 15 countries, subsidiaries. Each country had a product manager for that division that was actually reporting to me. So that was after 8 years of me coming out of a factory and saying I can do a job. I was actually that level. And so from then on, it became a question of where do I go from here? I didn't study marketing. I did economics. It's a very transferable discipline. So regardless of which sector you find yourself, that is a skill, that is an experience or a qualification that is very, very useful across board. You grow in a company. Once you get into a company, you have to kind of understand how that company works. And women, we have this innate ability to kind of learn how to do things very quickly, right? You learn how to do things very quickly. And so when there's an opportunity, you can shift either left, right, or you can go upwards. Yeah. I had a boyfriend at the time who was a lecturer at a university, and Microsoft wanted to open their subsidiary in Africa, in West Africa. And I was asked to go and be like a deputy CEO, where we're going to place our subsidiary in Ivory Coast. I had a boyfriend I was living with at the time, and he said, if you go, again, lesson number something, I don't think our relationship will survive. Yeah. I loved him very much. I did. And so after much conversations, I did not take the job. I didn't. Short story was I married the man, right? So at least it wasn't all bad. Yes, it wasn't all bad. But I was at a crossroad because we got married and obviously had to start a family. I was still working in the regional office, which was based in the UK. But having set up all these subsidiaries in Africa, we wanted to move that head office to be situated in Africa because it didn't make sense for it to be in London, whereas all the subsidiaries. So, Celine, do you want to go to Africa? Again, this is another opportunity to go back to Africa to work. And by then, I was really committed in the relationship. I couldn't. And so I was offered a chance to either take redundancy or be reintegrated back into Microsoft UK, right? And I thought to myself, okay, I know what I want to do. I've always dreamt about magazines. I've always liked the idea of running a magazine, my own magazine. I thought, okay, I'll take the money. So I took a lot of money from Microsoft. I went home. I had a baby. We had our first child. And when the child was 2 years old, and me, I typically commit to something. Like, when I'm a mother, I'm like a mother. But when he was 2 and 3 and getting ready to start school, I thought, when you've dropped him off at school, what am I going to be doing? Like, what am I going to be doing? And so this idea of a magazine came up. And I wrote to 2 people that I know could help me just take this vision that I had, this plan that I had in my head. I wrote to Condé Nast. Who knows Condé Nast? You know Condé Nast. So Condé Nast are like probably the biggest family publishing firm in the world. So they publish Vogue. Lots of top magazines that you see on the shelves are from the family of Condé Nast. So the head of Condé Nast is a guy called Jonathan Newhouse. It's a family business. They're Jewish people. I don't know him from Adam, but I wrote to him. I said, "Dear Mr. Newhouse, I have this plan for a magazine. I know you have Vogue and you have all these things, but you don't have a magazine for black women. Like magazine for black women who are like me. Me being a middle class, I'm highly educated, I'm interested in fashion, I'm interested in the issues of women, but I am black. When I buy Vogue, I don't see me. I can see Naomi Campbell, but she doesn't represent me like that, right?" So I did a business plan, a quick business plan, sent it to him. This was 1998. 98. And he said to me, he wrote back to me immediately, and I didn't even expect a reply. But he wrote back and said, "Really nice idea. You know, there's one of those polite letters. Really nice, thank you, but I don't think your market is big enough for us. The way we do things at Condé Nast is like big, flash, and whatever. So thank you very much. But if you'd like to talk about magazines in general, come and have tea anytime in London, blah, blah, blah." So I took that letter, pinned it in a board, and kind of forgot about it. The next thing that happened to me was I got a call so I wrote to, who knows Ebony magazine? Right. Ebony and Fashion Fair. Yes. All of that was from one guy, John H. Johnson, American big billionaire entrepreneur. He's a direct descendant. His mother was a slave, basically. So he's like the first black billionaire who came from that he was a slave, so a slave child. But he was a self-made man. So he had Fashion Fair, the Empire, he had Ebony magazine, Jet magazine, lots of different things. So I wrote the same letter that I wrote to Jonathan Newhouse, I wrote to him as well with my little business plan. And he called. He actually picked up his phone, called me, and said, "This is John H. Johnson." And I thought someone was playing a prank on me. Like, no. I was about to put the phone down, and he said, I got your letter.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God. He's calling me. Wow. Anyway, what happened with him? He said, and these were his exact words, "Woman, you're giving me food when I've just eaten."
Oh.
I didn't understand it. And I said, "Please, sir, can you explain?" And he said, "Well, we've just launched Ebony South Africa to test the African market, right? So it's so unfortunate. If this had come before, you could have been part of that project, and maybe you could have led it, and all of that. Anyway, short story was, he was very nice to me. He encouraged me. He said, I could do this, but we're testing the African market with Ebony South Africa. So those 2 things actually said to me, I'm on the right path. This is something which I must do. Like the universe is telling me to do this thing, even though it was just a little dream in my head. Who had this entrepreneurial plan? Yes. It's a dream in your head, but sometimes it looks too big. So you kind of keep it like, whatever, it's my nice dream, but the universe was telling me it's something that you can do, because these are humongous giants in the business, and they're actually giving you their time. They're not like just taking your letter and putting it in the bin. So I thought I must start Aspire magazine. So I started Aspire magazine in 2004, or thereabouts. And so how did I start Aspire magazine? Like I said, I had a lot of money from Microsoft. I did not want to do another African magazine that was very African. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. We always do things, and we do them like the poor cousin of the white version of things, right? So in the UK, there was a magazine called Pride. That was the only black magazine that was European based or English speaking European. All of us grew up buying Ebony or Essence, both of which were very American in their content, in their presentation, in their visuals, culturally they were very American. But we lived vicariously through them. We just enjoyed seeing black women in their various, whether it was business or glamour, whatever. We just enjoyed it, but they were not African women. So I thought I must do this thing. I wrote to Jonathan Newhouse again, saying, I copied the letter that he sent me. I said, that last line where you said, I can come and have tea, can I come and have tea with you now? It's been 6 years. I believe the market has moved on. Now, African women, black women in the UK, they are now in these kind of positions. They can, there's a real market there for middle-class black women who wanted something like a Marie Claire, but culturally black, right? So I went, had coffee with him, had tea with him in their huge offices in London. But what I did before I met him, he gave me an appointment like a month ahead. I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about both. My story is too long. Please stop me when you can. Honestly, when you've had a journey like mine, I don't know how to shorten it. I'm telling the short version of it. But anyway, I'm telling you because there are so many lessons in this journey of mine, and I don't want to be big-headed, but even I learn from whenever I talk about how I've come to where I've come to. There's a lot of things that I still learn from that journey, and I learn from everybody's journey. But anyway, he gave me an appointment, 4th of July, I remember this very clearly, in London, but this was June, like 4th, 3rd of June or whatever. So I thought, okay, here am I. I have no experience in magazine production, in the magazine industry. I have zero experience. I know that I could do it because I know myself, but I can't convince anybody because I haven't done it before. I haven't worked in any publishing firm. I have not had any single experience at all. So what am I going to talk to this man about when I go to this meeting? We'll have a nice chat and he will encourage me and pat me on the head and send me off. Yeah. So I thought, okay, well. So I did a pilot version of the magazine that I had in mind. Yeah. It wasn't 100 pages, it was 30 pages. So I invested my own money, produced a magazine. I had Iman on the cover. I don't know if you remember this. This was my very first Aspire magazine. So I went through the process of getting editorials, of getting articles, of sourcing pictures. In that 1 month. I did that and put it together. I hired a graphic designer. He laid it all. We sat there, did everything. And I also I made it a point to go to the factory where it was being produced. And you don't know this, and you must have experienced this. When you see your glossy magazine actually coming through the belt, like the very first copy, it's the most ecstatic feeling ever, so wonderful. So it came out all shiny and glossy, and I printed 2,000 copies of this magazine. So armed with it, I went to see Mr. Newhouse. And so we came in. Somebody brought the tea and the coffee and stuff. And he said, so, how can I help? And I said, well, we had this conversation. You wrote to me, and I was very happy that you wrote to me. I understood what you said at the time about the economic base of black people in the UK in terms of how it wasn't big enough to be supported by advertising. But I think 6 years on, and I showed him some statistics and stuff like women who are doing this, and how I think the economic base for the black pound, as we called it in those days, I think is growing, and we can actually support this magazine with advertising. So I handed him a copy of the magazine. And of course, he flicked through. That's the first thing that people do. And I do it now because I'm the veteran. Give me a magazine, and all they do was look at advertising. They looked at it. He looked at it. And then he looked at me and he said, swear to God, he said, are you sure you haven't done this before? And I said, no. And he said, God help the publishing world if you had come through the ranks. Wow. That's what Jonathan Newhouse said to me. He said, God help the publishing world if you had come through the ranks. you've done this with no experience, nothing. I said, yeah, I just know that I can do it, and I have a real passion for it, and I know this will be valuable to the community that I represent. Said, okay, what we'll do, we'll put a team together. We'll do a bit of research, like we know what you've done, but we still need to really do our research to know if the market is really big enough for how we do things. What they do is they throw huge money at these sorts of projects, and because they know what they're going to get back. Yeah. But I wanted to do it my way, which is small money with big returns, because I know you don't need glass paneled offices. Yeah. You don't need to hire all sorts of people at huge salaries to do this thing. I knew I could do it with a lot more cut down version of how they do things, but they didn't want to do things that way. So anyway, short story was, after 6 months, they decided they didn't want to do it. Yeah. That it wasn't worth their while to kind of take on a black magazine within their stables. But he said to me, I will encourage you to do it. Yeah. That's what he said. Just go and do it. And that's what I did. So we launched Aspire in 2003, I think it was, 2004. And yeah, it ran for about 7 years until I got headhunted to go to Nigeria to transform the UBA brand. That again is a long story of how I got, but I left the magazine. I left a small team in the UK to try and continue doing it. But when you have a vision, and it's your vision and it's your eye, it's not the same, and you have to be there. And also, to be fair, my job in the UK and in Nigeria got so much bigger and bigger, because when you come with a range of skills in a company in Africa, when, at that time especially, before all the returnees came back, you get thrown a lot of things into your pot because you're able to add value to so many things that the company is trying to do. So my job got so much bigger, and I really couldn't do Aspire and the job. And the only regret I have is that I didn't sell it. Somebody wanted to buy Aspire, and I thought, in my little head, I thought, I will come back to it. So I refused to sell it, and yeah, it just fizzled out. But then I worked in the banking sector for like six years. I worked in 2 commercial banks, and then I worked for the regulator bank for 4 years before I joined oil and gas industry with SEPLAT, which is a company I'm really proud of, actually. It's African company, it's Nigerian, but it's listed in London and also in Nigeria, and they're doing really great. I left SEPLAT only because the chairman of SEPLAT wanted to start a Nigerian version of SEPLAT, meaning a company that would not be listed. So he wanted to set up another company that would be a kind of Nigerian version of SEPLAT. And so that's how Salvic was born, and I'm still there. We're still kind of struggling to get to the heights of SEPLAT, but hopefully one day we will. So that's my story in terms of career, the long and short.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sorry.
I mean, I love how you've just put all of it together.
It's too long. Yeah.
It's how you tell the story. Yes. No matter how long the story is, it's the way you engage. You make us engage with listening, and I could just listen and they dream.
Yes. It's true that sometimes we are affected by the good we have been raised.
Yeah.
It comes from there.
It comes from there
so
too. That's true.
Who was your parents?
I got pregnant when I was in high school. That's another part of my story that you don't even know. I was in high school, I got pregnant before my A-levels. So this is me in high school. We've just finished the first year of high school. High school is only 2 years and you write your A-levels. First year of high school, I get pregnant. So I have 2 choices. I can go and get, like, this is the end of my life. I can go and become a single mother, or my dad, I think, is what maybe that came from, because he was adamant that this will not stop my career, my life. So basically, the last term of the first year, I wasn't in school. And also the first 6 months of my second year, I wasn't in school. I was having a baby, right? So when I came back from having my baby, we were just before the mocks for the A-level. So bear in mind, I've missed first term, I've missed the last term I've missed a lot of school, basically. So my dad said, just go and do it, right? you will fail anyway because you haven't been in school, but I don't want you to be at home. We will look after this baby. You go to school, just whatever. Just take the exams. If you fail, you fail. We expect that you will fail because you haven't been at school. So anyway, I took the mock without too much preparation. And when the results came, I had like 7. This is out of 20. I had 7, 7.5, and 6.5. And I thought, wow. For me, that was like, oh my God, wow, I had 7. No, I'm being serious. I had 7 without preparing for these exams. I literally just walked back into school and there was the mocks like the next week. So for the mocks, that was for me encouraging. So I took the A-levels that same year where I was supposed to be out looking after my child. I took the A-levels, and again, I'm going to say something which is going to make my head swell because I was the only girl, I think one of 2 girls who passed physics.
Wow.
In Bambili that year, yeah.
Wow.
So I passed all my 3 subjects, and I was the only girl who passed physics. And so I think it's from my dad. I think it's just a question of he had such a high expectation of me, and therefore I had to believe that I had this thing in me that would, because in any other family that could have been the end of me. I could have been a girl who got pregnant in high school, and that was it for them. So when my child was 2, was when I got a scholarship to go to England. Again, another decision I had to make, which is to leave my child behind, which I could cry saying it, but I can't. I wouldn't cry. Anyway, he's now a very big boy. He's made me a grandmother, by the way. So it all ended well, put it that way.
But today I want to ask you to just share with us your first experience, what it was for you, how it was, how did you get there.
Before I answer that question, thank you, Adelaide. I just want to make a correction. I haven't been a board member,
Okay.
and I will make the decision very clearly. So as an executive director in companies, you sit in the board meetings, right?
Okay.
Without necessarily being a board member,
Okay.
right? So my experience of boards is from that perspective.
Okay.
So, but my first experience was in UBA, where I was director of corporate communications, marketing, corporate relations, and I also ran the UBA Foundation. That was also under me. So sitting in a board meeting gives you, for those of you who you understand this, it gives you a very broad view of the business. As an executive, you have your department that you run, and you go into the board meeting to present either your reports for how you've been performing, or you're seeking justification for a funding that you're requesting. That's your experience of the board. So you go there, and the board actually, with their role of overseeing and oversight and supervising and setting guidelines for you guys, you have to go there and present either an update for how your department is doing, or give a justification for what funding you're needing. So that's my experience of the board. And I think the board is really useful for executives to get a sense of what the whole company is doing. Typically, companies try to bring all the departments together to stop them working as silos. But you all know that it doesn't happen. It's so difficult. Every entity is their own kind of internal business in the company. And so the board, sitting in a board, allows you to get a real sense of how the whole business looks and how it's doing. So that was my first experience. What I also find in board meetings is that people, if you have a really coherent company, then you get that cohesive view of the business, you have a cohesive conversation. But also the board is where you go and see real competition, where people start to want to kind of posture, this is my department is doing this, and is, whatever is happening wrong in the company, is that other department's fault. So there's also a lot of posturing that goes on in boardrooms that you need to just know how to navigate and come across as someone who is there to add value to the company, full stop. You're not there to kind of just posture and present your own little silo of the company as doing well or doing better. Because ultimately, if the company is not doing well, then you're all not doing well. So you want to be in that boardroom looking to be the person that is giving value that will go throughout the company, rather than just saying, yeah, hey, look, I did this and it's mine, I did really well. So yeah, that was my first experience of board meetings or boardroom that was in UBA.
Okay. So now we're talking about the trends and the insights. Right now there are a lot of things that shape the way companies make decisions and the kind of decision that they make with regards to deciding who to onboard in the boardrooms and who not to. So what are some of the items or some of the trends that influence, how decisions are being made
today? So boards typically, as you know, governed organizations. They are the ones that oversee the vision, the strategies, the goals of the organization. They don't actually do any executive management themselves. So essentially what you want with a strong board is diversity, right? So that's a big buzzword these days in boardrooms. If you're trying to build a board, you want a very diverse board. Now that diversity is not just about gender, right? It's about skill set. So you can be an oil company, but you go and get somebody who's a medical doctor to be on your board. There's a reason why you want that person on that board. They come with a perspective that is so different. They can see things differently from what someone who is in the oil and gas industry, can come with. But that other perspective turns out to be very useful. So you want a very diverse thinking in that boardroom when you're, whatever the problem is that you're trying to solve, whatever the vision you're trying to set, you want a very diverse perspective to that one particular problem. So boards typically are diverse in terms of skill set, in terms of gender, in terms of even geography. If you're a Cameroonian company, for example, you want to do business in other African countries, you don't want your whole board to be all Cameroonians. You want to diversify in that sense and make sure that the people can bring different cultural perspective to your business depending on your vision. Gender diversity obviously is the obvious one. I don't know how we've come this late before we've understood that women bring so much to the table in the boardroom. When you're discussing any problems, women bring a really good perspective. And I've experienced that a lot in my career, where the way that women see things are so different to how men see things. And so boards typically were all men for a very long time until quite recently. And even now, if you have 13-member board, there might be 2 women. There might be only 2 women. And you're actually missing a lot by not increasing the number of women on your board to at least 40-50%, right? But it's a long way and the journey is still carrying on. But now the trend is diversity. And of course, when you think diversity, you think gender diversity. So most boards are starting to increase the percentage of women on their board. If you're typically 13 board member for big companies, you will find maybe 6 women, 5 women. So it's getting better.
So do you think this will be as a result of a positive discrimination that most people are, positive discrimination with regards to women, or do you think this is as a result of the pressure with regards to inclusion and diversity, or do you think most women who sit now on the board truly deserve it?
The latter. Okay. I don't like positive discrimination. I think most people don't like positive discrimination, especially women who are competent in themselves. If you are setting up a board, and you want to build a board, you don't want to go and say, I'm just going to find women. You want to find good women. You want to have the right person in the right role. And I think what has happened is that people have just opened their eyes to see that if you look around, you will find competent women. You don't need to just bring a woman who can just occupy a seat because you want gender diversity. I think women have truly asserted themselves to the point where they can't be ignored. They're very, very good women whom, if you want, to sit on their boards, you don't need to over justify why you need that particular person on the board. They come with the skills, they come with the gender, they come also with that kind of female perspective, which I think is useful in any walk of life, because we have a certain intuition. Maybe it's our wombs, I don't know. Yeah. Women have a way of looking at life and a problem the way that men probably will miss. So yeah.
What about qualifications? Do you think there are any qualifications?
Any specific qualifications to make you board member? No. I think you need to have established yourself in your own field, in your own discipline. So a board looking for someone with technical qualifications, for example, the CTO here, she's right there. So if you are a again, let me use oil and gas company or a banking company or a financial services company, you will have a technology aspect to your business. So somebody sitting on the board that can bring that special expertise to the discussions that you have about technology is very useful, because typically the board interrogates, right? They interrogate rather than do it. Well, they advise later on, but really the executives know the business. They are the ones that are running the business on a day-to-day basis. So you need people on the board who can interrogate you on what you're telling them about how the business is doing. So you have that perspective of technology, so you can ask a technical question. Somebody else can ask a very innocuous question that is not technological, but it pertains to what problem that technology is trying to solve, right? So you don't only need a technical person, but you need someone who understands how to interrogate somebody presenting information to them. So the special skills that you need as a board member, first of all, is your own technical skills. That's fine, that's given. But you have to be someone who's also analytical in your thinking, right? So somebody presenting information to you, even though that's not your subject matter, but you can pick things from it to say, well, I know what problem you're trying to solve. How about this? Can you explain this to me as a layperson, for example, right? And they can explain that problem to you. So you need to have good communication skills, obviously. If you're going to be a board member, you have to have that ability to kind of parallel think. Someone's presenting you information, you have to kind of think, okay, where, bring perspectives into that kind of discussion. So communication skills, your own personal skills, whether it's HR, technology, or accounting or finance, whatever it is, you bring that to the table, but your character, your personality, your ability to engage with others. You don't want to be a board member that just sits quiet in a boardroom. I mean, that's not going to be useful for anyone. And sometimes if a board member is elected wrongly, you can have people who sit quietly in a room. I've experienced that also, where board members do not contribute, and you think, but why is this person here? They're so quiet. They come, they collect their sitting allowance every whatever, because they've been placed by somebody in that board, right? Because typically boards they're there to represent the shareholders, and sometimes a particular shareholder will send someone who is not really board ready in that sense, but they have trust in them to go and kind of look after their interest on the board, but they're not good board members because they are quiet, or they don't ask questions, they don't advise. So yeah, in terms of skill base, you have to really come with someone who can understand things, assimilate information, and also ask questions properly.
Now, my next question is really going to go. You've mentioned someone sitting quiet. Sometimes we walk in the room, as women in particular, and the room is full of men, and we easily get intimidated. Now, in a situation like that, in the boardroom, how can you develop, prior to that, how do you develop that self-confidence, that skills that you need to walk into that boardroom and immediately
have impact? Yeah. So we all have different characters, we all have different personalities. Not all of us are out there, so to speak. Some people have quiet power. They don't speak very often, but when they do speak, it has impact, right? So so you can bring that also to the boardroom, and people respect that. Like, some people just always, every minute they want to speak. Even that's no good, right? Overly quiet, not good. But there are people who have quiet power, who they're sitting there, you don't think they're kind of assimilating, but they are. And they ask a really impactful question every now and again. But if you're that kind of person who is a little bit shy about expressing themselves, but you think you have value to offer a board, then you can go on these communication training. You can have media training. There are people who can help you in answering questions and just facing your fear of speaking, because not all of us, even though you have content, right? Everybody has content, meaning you have competence. You can speak on a subject, but you have fear of speaking because maybe, again, upbringing, whatever it is, you just don't express yourself very well. But media training is good. That's one way to just bring yourself out of yourself and be able to kind of face people and talk that way. So you can develop those sorts of interpersonal skills other than your technical skills.
Now, where are they? We're talking about networking. Networking these days, it has become really the key. Everybody's talking about networking. I'm going to a face-to-face event where I'm going to be networking. I'm on a Zoom meeting where I'm networking. What parts does this actually play when it comes to getting ready? And what should I do when I work in that, networking room? How do I spot someone who can facilitate, my move into the next room?
Right. Networking is huge. It's huge. I mean, we talk about human connections, loving humans when you're trying to climb the ladder or trying to achieve your vision. Humans are part of, it's why we are here. So you can't do this in isolation. The other thing that happens when people are seeking opportunities is just helping other people, right? And how that, you don't know how that comes back 360 to help you. So I know one woman who is seeking board positions right now. She's seeking to be on a board, and a company approached her, or somebody approached her to say there's an opportunity somewhere in a particular company. And she's not quite ready herself right now, like this very minute. But what she did was she positioned another woman. Do you know what I mean? Like she said, have you thought about this woman? Well, you're all saying wow, because it's a wow thing. Like we know how we women, we even compete amongst ourselves. And for some woman to say, actually, if not me, this person has even more competence than me to sit on that board because she's done this, that, and the other. And I think for right now, have you thought about speaking to her? Now, this person came to her to say, I want you on this board, but she's saying, have you thought of this other woman? So that's something which, once you do that, it seeded a notion in the mind of that other person, of the kind of person that you are.
Yes.
There is no way on earth that another opportunity will come. They will not come back to you because they know you have that character. You have a character of someone who truly knows what value is, and they can give value. So that person thought somebody else can give better value to this particular company than she could, and she offered that person up. And so those sorts of networking, you meet other people, they may have your competence, they may have opportunities, you may give them opportunities, but it's, this networking is really truly a give and take.
Yes.
You meet people that you give value to, you meet people that they give you value. You meet someone who says, yes, I know this company that's looking for something, but they really want someone from HR background. And there you are right there speaking to someone who can give you a complete. I know someone actually that I'm going to introduce you to who is in the football agency. Well, she's very big. She has a restaurant in Oxford Street in London. She's a very big, powerful woman, but she's in this business and still complaining that she's undermined as a woman when she walks into a room and it's all these men and they look like, what's she doing here? She has that same, but she's a powerful woman in her own right. And I will introduce her to you, and that's what networking does. That's what.
But based on your experience in the boardroom, or different boardrooms, what are some of the attitude, and attitude that you see that can actually help us in fine-tuning the way we behave if that's the position we are seeking in the future?
Okay. The short answer is you have to put yourself out there. You have to make people understand what you want. If people don't know what you want, then they can't offer you anything. So if you're truly seeking a board position, the first thing you write on your CV is that you're seeking board positions. You express it. You just say, these are my skills, this is what I'm looking for. I am seeking board positions. In fact, it's on my CV right now. That one of the things I look for, not just board positions, but that I do this, and I'm looking for particularly these sectors. Now that I've had a career in the business commercial world, I would like to explore like NGOs, global NGOs, that sort of thing. So I put that on my CV. So whoever looks at it knows exactly what I want. So when you go to a networking situation or when you find connections with people, express what you want. It's just basically telling them. And if you can't do that, part of what you do and part of what you're doing now is building your own personal brand. And your own personal brand is not about you have a name and you have a logo. You have something that people know you for, right? So they know you for this. They know you as that CTO, that unique CTO. It's a brand that you've got to build. But even when you build a brand, which is you've infused yourself with that quality of being the CTO, the rare CTO who is a female, it needs to be given visibility. People need to know that you're there. And how do you get that visibility? You network. Now social media is like everywhere. But you present yourself, you give it visibility. When there's a speaking opportunity, you talk, you present yourself. If you are the kind of person who is shy, who is reticent about kind of speaking about themselves like that, then you hire maybe a PR somebody. Yeah? Somebody who can, but not for a lot of money. Yeah, someone can take that upon themselves to say, I will seek these opportunities for you. I will, if there's a need to talk about technology or HR or finance, then I can put your name in and say this person can speak intelligibly and knowledgeably and with a lot of experience about this particular subject. So you build your brand through just knowing your subject matter, becoming an expert in that subject, and letting people know that you're an expert in that subject. And yeah, that's you. And then when you know you want a board position, put it out there that you're seeking board positions. It sounds simple enough, but that's, you have to tell people what you want. Otherwise, is the buzzword, you have to be intentional. I think people say that a lot. Yeah, you have to be intentional, purposeful, just say what you want. Yeah.
Is that part of personal branding?
Personal branding is absolutely very, very, very crucial, because personal branding is not, again, I have to go, not a lot of people know what branding is. Branding is not just a logo and a name and a thing, or even social media. It's about people knowing you for something, right? People know that you're good at this particular thing, and you kind of promoting that out there. Yeah. And knowing your subject matter. You have to know your subject matter, because you can't become an expert if you're. It doesn't mean that you know everything in that subject, but that you can speak intelligibly about that subject. Yeah.
So what parts does collaboration and accountability has to play, when you're seeking a board position? Because I was reading somewhere, and two words that actually struck out was collaboration, accountability for you to be a successful board member. And I was thinking, okay, what part does this actually play in that?
All right. Well, those things are very important. Like I said, board members there are different types of board members. So basically, they represent the interests of shareholders. Now we're talking about business, but not all organizations are commercial entities. So we now not only talk about shareholders, but we talk about stakeholders, right? So whoever has a stake in that organization, whoever has interest in that organization, has representation on the board, right? Whether it's public or private. If it's a board constituted of board members, they are representing different elements of stakeholders. Yes. Right. It could be even the public. It could be someone from civil society that is sitting on the board of an organization that needs the public mindset or the public's perspective or the perspective of the masses. So you come as a civil service or civil society representation on that board. So collaboration is very important because, of course, you're talking to people from all walks of life. You're talking to people with all sorts of diverse skills and skill sets and diverse backgrounds. So you've come with your own perspective. It cannot always be your own perspective. So you need to kind of collaborate. That's given. Character is almost paramount, but not almost, it's paramount. Because let me tell you about boards. A board member, if a company goes down, a company is liable for anything, the board members are the first to be arrested.
Okay.
So if you're on board if you're on the board of a company, you have to understand that you're actually taking on a lot more than just sitting in a room and asking questions. You become a representative member of that company. That is why boards are very, very, very strong on governance and compliance. Because if you are in contravention of any of the regulatory requirements or whatever, they are also held liable, right? So character is very important, and vice versa. If you're a board member and they find you doing some rather despicable things, then it rubs off on the company. And so when you talk about character, when people are seeking board positions, trust me, they will do a background check on you.
Of course.
Yeah, they will do a background check on all your socials now. If you know, they will do complete due diligence to the point of, if you've ever liked a post on social media that was either sleazy or racist or derogatory in any way, that marks you down. Because so you have to be really careful with your own personal branding. And we talk about personal branding, meaning your whole character, like who you are as a person. So, yes, online and offline, absolutely, yes. So you have to. So character is very, very, very key for people who are seeking to build their boards and to build strong boards that can really stand the test of time. Yeah.
That could be a challenge then. Now,
What, have you done anything? No, sorry.
we're jumping on social media and flying in the sky.
Yes, you just.
What are some of the challenges that we can? I'm talking about challenges. What are some of the challenges that you feel we can find in the boardroom? You know, apart from being arrested first person.
No.
Before that,
Arrest
comes.
was an extreme. Challenges are just being able to put your point across. If you think about boards, they're like, most have sat on the 13, 14 members, right? They're all coming with different perspectives. Everybody wants to have an impact. Everybody wants to make sure that they are earning their crust, so to speak. And so everybody's talking, and you have to find a way to have impact, to really make people see the value that you're bringing to the board. And that means you understanding the business, right? First of all, by the way, there's a lot of reading that goes with if you're a board member as well.
Okay.
Oh, they send you, if you're the bigger the company, the more the reading you have to do to prepare for your board meeting.
Okay.
Yes. So all the managers, all the executives send in those reports before a board meeting. Every board meeting, you're reading this high, papers that you have to prepare for. Because you can't go into a meeting and not be able to interrogate and ask the right kind of questions. So all those things would have been sent to you beforehand by either the company secretary, or in my case, I was doing some of that as well. I was liaising between board and executives when I worked for SEPLAT. So there's like a pile of information that you have to go through before you come to the meeting. You have to come prepared. You can't read it the night before. You have to read it, digest it, do your notes on the side of it, prepare your questions, so that you really truly add value. There's no worse meeting that you go to than one where you've done a presentation, any questions, and everybody's looking at you like, then there are no questions. Well, if there are no questions, maybe you've done a really good job. But it's never that way. It's just that they haven't prepared. They haven't read the information in advance. They just want to get through that meeting. And that doesn't do any good for the company. And it doesn't do any good for you. You have to be able to prepare yourself by reading through all the material, digest it, understand it, ask questions where there are gaps, and then ask those insightful questions to interrogate the managers and the executives, so that they know that they are held accountable by proper people, not just people who are sitting there and just listening to them. Yeah.
So we're getting ready. I think I'm already ready.
Okay.
But before that, now that I'm ready, where should I be looking? What are the opportunities currently if I want to start looking, becoming a board member?
Yeah.
Where should I look?
Right. Because your audience here, they're all executives, they're still working or running their own businesses. There are different ways to go about this. If you want like board positions now, one of the easiest ways to do it is to look at startups. Startups are a good way to cut your teeth, so to speak, on sitting on a board. Because a startup typically, let's say they know nothing about about oversight and governance and all those wonderful things that boards do. So you've had the experience of actually running a company or working in big corporations. You can actually get on board a startup and provide that wonderful oversight in terms of how they set their strategy, in terms of how their vision is even set from the onset, so you can add value straight off. So if you know anyone who's doing a startup and they come for you for advice, one of the quid pro quo you could do, you could give them free advice but sit on their boards.
Okay.
They don't need to pay you, but if you sit on their boards, at least that's a start for helping them grow the company from inset to when when you can start actually being paid or getting paid for what you're giving to them. The other way of getting into boards, as I said earlier, is just put yourself out there. Like, write to companies that you know if you know there's a vacancy on a board, because usually there aren't, right? Startups is fine because they are kind of greenfield. You go there and you say, well, start a board. I'll start a board for you. I'm the first board member, and you're already a board member. The other ways is to see which companies have vacancies for a board. Sometimes boards the vacancies come when a board member's term runs out, because boards are not forever. Some are. Some family companies, some family businesses, the boards are forever. But usually boards have terms, and when you know that someone's term is coming to an end, you can put yourself up and say, I'm interested in this position. Like I said, there's nothing wrong in just saying exactly what you want, but you have to do the research to see who is, where the vacancies are coming up and where you can send in your application. Networking is also really important. That's when you meet people. When you talk to people, like you're sitting here, someone might know. Jackie might know. Like she did with the other lady, she might know. So you just say, yeah, this is what I do, but I'm also looking to sit on boards because I think I can add value, I can do this. And that's it. You've put it out there in the universe, exchange cards, exchange contact details, and that will do. Or write to companies. Write to companies and say, I am available. They will do their due diligence on you, and who knows? Yeah. Opportunity when you go into these startups, that's where you add the value. Okay. That's the opportunity for you to say you need a board. Okay. And sometimes they may not need a board, right? Because there are different ways of seeking that layer over management, that overseeing element. Some are advisory boards. That's different from a board of directors, right? You can have an advisory board, okay, which is probably what you're doing with some of these startups, where they just, they just need you to kind of guide them in certain things that they're trying to do. But a proper board of directors is a real part of the governance structure of the company, right? So they're not there to just, like, every now and again give you advice. They're there to actually oversee how the company is run, if it's an ongoing entity. If it's a new startup, then how the company even is developed, what your strategies are, how you set your mission, how you set your vision, how you develop the company in terms of its own governance structure and so forth. So if any of you find yourself in that position, you've had the experience. They will be looking to you to help them kind of structure that board. Okay. With you being the first board member, then you can kind of say, okay, you need this other element, you need this other element, you need this kind of person. If it's 6 man or it's 7 man or it's 10 man, whatever it is, you are coming with that background experience to help them do that. And of course, immediately you're adding value. You've set yourself in a very strong position. As the company grows, you're part of it. Yeah.
What about in cases where someone might not know? Put it simple this way: you've worked in the corporate world all your life, and you've got to do a lot of operations, mm-hmm, and managing people on the other side, yeah, and all of a sudden you feel tired, you feel bored, you want to move, you want to leave, and then you're asking yourself, okay, or maybe you even want to be part of a board, or set up a board. How do you know the elements that you need to actually set up that board? Mm-hmm. Or how do you know when to ask the questions about, in addition to the members who are already there, I feel we're lacking in this, and we need a board member who has these skills, of maybe drilling you with questions. So I'm just trying to.
So like I said earlier, not every company will need a board.
Okay.
So If someone starts a company, they're immediately the CEO and chairman of that company. So if you start your own company by yourself, you're the CEO, you're the chairman, but you need a finance person, right? So you get a CTO, you get an accountant. That person is immediately your chief technical officer. And we're using these C-suite words because we're talking about big companies. Not every company has the C-suite of executives. You can just have managers who are helping you do stuff. They're not executives in that sense, but they're. So it depends on the size of the company, the level of your vision, the grander it is, the bigger, the more you need a board, right? The more the money, the more the stakes, the higher the stakes, the more you need a board to oversee the governance of your company. If you're going to be listed, if you take other people's money to start your company, you definitely need a board. You need that oversight. Because first of all, the people who are investing in your business will require that anyway, because they will have a representative on that board, because they have a stake in it. So they will have a representative on the board. So if you have 5 shareholders, that's immediately 5 board members you've got, right? And then you think, okay, these 5 board members I have, maybe they only have one character or one skill set or one geography or whatever. So you now think about how do you how do you diversify that board? So you find the gaps, you analyze it, and you find where the gaps are, and then you find the right people to kind of fill those gaps. And usually the right people are out there. They're all here seeking board positions. It's just, again, an opportunity which someone can take it up. No one has ever thought about the fact that we have search organizations, right? We have executive search.
Yes.
If you're looking for a new position, fine, you go to executive search, but no one's ever thought about specifically board positions. I think they have, but maybe in, as we say, white man country, they have. But that's an opportunity for you.
That has brought us to the last question on my
Okay.
list, which was advice and recommendation, which you've done my recommendation.
I have done it.
What would you recommend to
These women here who have come to
what
listen?
advice would you
Okay.
give to them now that they're looking at
It's yeah, I'd rather they ask me questions, because it's a very general recommendation, which is develop your personal brand, give visibility to that brand by either networking or taking up speaking opportunities. Let people know that you're an expert in a particular subject matter, and if you do those things, they will come and find you, I think. But also be purposeful, be open about the fact that this is what you're looking for, a board position, right? If you're busy executives right now, but you're thinking ahead, transition, that's a good way to start thinking about it, but also to understand what it means to be a board member. You not only know about the business itself, but the industry.
Yes.
Particularly the governance, regulatory issues in that industry, so that the executives themselves, and I have this as an experience, they don't, like I said, they're focused on their department, they're focused on what they're doing. Some of those regulatory things fall on the board to hold them accountable for those things. And that's really where you come to your own as a board member. Yeah. We are in Africa, so I'll tell you how some board members see the sort of perks of being on the board.
Okay.
But if you're a listed company, I'm sorry, this is frowned upon, right? Some board members in African companies typically think, I'm on the board, therefore when I'm on the board, I know what projects are coming. So I know, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to even say this, because this is the podcast. I'm not going to go any further. But that's the kind of ulterior motive that some people have for going onto boards, which if you go into a company that is well run, you may not even realize that benefit, because there is such a thing called related party transactions, which are frowned upon, especially if your company is listed on any of the stock exchanges, right? Related party means there's a business, there's a project, and you give to someone who is connected to someone in the company in some way, your cousin, your cousin's wife, or whatever it is. But I have worked in companies which are listed where there are related party transactions. As long as you report them fairly and truthfully. The stock exchanges or the regulators are usually, they let you have a certain number of them, but you can't go beyond a threshold. So if your business is doing, say, $1 million business in total, you can't have 50% of that, all related transactions. Companies, regulators will frown upon those sorts of things. But if you have, 5%, 10%, like the CEO's wife is the one who is supplying lunch for. Do you know what I mean? No, but regulators frown upon that sort of thing.
Because of
Conflict of interest. She can, you can get your lunch for 5,000 per head.
Yes, arm's length.
From your wife,
Okay.
from the CEO's wife,
Yes.
but somebody down the road, some other person who's not related, may be offering the same lunch for 3,000.
Yes. Yeah.
So the reason why companies or regulators don't want you to do that, or shareholders don't like you doing that, is because there is usually the tendency to overprice, to overcost the company, when actually you could get it cheaper somewhere else. Because it's your person, you don't question that cost as much, you don't interrogate it as much, because it's the CEO's or it's the chairman's wife or it's the chairman's brother, so you don't interrogate the justification as much as you would if it was somebody off the street. So yes, just to conclude on that, if you're going onto boards because you want to earn a lot of money, no, it's not going to happen. That's not why you go into a boardroom. You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much, Celine.
Okay.
Culturally, what we normally do is we ask Elizabeth to give a contribution to the topic. That's
Okay.
what she normally does
Okay.
during our network.
Okay.
So I'd like her to just give her points. So Elizabeth,
Even that was brilliant. I think what you mentioned and shared with the audience there, to share of your own personal experience has been wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm just looking at boards, and the ability to be on a board is not an easy decision to make. I know most of the time you have to be really prepared. You have to be, if you're looking at public company boards, to be really trained in corporate governance. You have to understand the regulations.
Yes.
You have to really participate. You mentioned the deep reading that takes place. You have to know the industry. You have to know the competitive landscape.
Yes.
You have to know the numbers, whether you're a technical person or not. You've
Yes.
got to know those company numbers. So you have to do your homework. You've got to be willing to stand alone on your opinions. You have to be completely independent. You have to act with absolute integrity. You have to be absolutely ethical in your approach to the board, because you're trying to ensure the sustainability of that company into the future, no matter what. There's many times when you'll be influenced negatively on a board. You'll be put under a lot of pressure with 3 or 5 to 1.
Yeah.
You will know they do that secretly behind your back a lot of the times. So I've had a lot of experience with Coca-Cola and AEL or the AECI. So I know it's a very difficult role to assume, especially in a public listed company.
Yeah.
On a more private company like this NGO, it's a much easier role to assume, because there's not as much repercussions
Yes.
that came along later on. Also, you need to know that once you dedicate yourself to being an entrepreneur, you have to make that commitment.
yeah.
You also have to be aware that there can be implications 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line that
Yeah.
can come and bite you. You have to be aware that you can be imprisoned. You have to be aware that there's directors' obligations.
Yes.
You have to be aware that you have to have insurances in place for some of those key board
Yes.
positions in these companies. So there's a lot to assume. But just overall from the experience that you've shared and what information you reported to the team, very, very well done. I think you've given a good sense of what being on the board is, and what is expected and what can be expected. So thank you very much.
Thank you.